Extra points.
That's right. Okay, so real quick, let's go through what we know about Joshua, the book of Joshua. Who's going to tell me who the author is? Joshua. And the date, around 1399 BC. The purpose is a historical account of God fulfilling his promise of giving the land of Canaan to Israel. And our key verse is Joshua 21:43. So the Lord gave Israel all the land which he had sworn to give to their fathers, and they possessed it and lived in it. And like I've said before, I'm going to be taking away an answer every now and then, and you guys have to remember it. So my thought for tonight. Look at you! Cheating the system!
Oh my God.
You guys are talking too much.
I think I caught that on camera. The camera's right there, so I probably heard you. So what I thought about this for a long time, and Derek finally helped me kind of figure it out. I was like, with our system that we're doing of read and rough outline and 1 through 8, how do I do that with multiple chapters?
Yeah.
And he had the idea of just do the same your 1 through 8 with each chapter, instead of trying to cover 3 chapters worth of material in each phase, I guess, or each step, because there's a very good chance that we're not going to cover everything tonight, and so we're just going to get through as much as we get through, and then we'll just pick up next week where we leave off. So, and we're not reading all 3 chapters tonight, but I keep that in the steps just so that you guys understand. Like, that's where that step usually is. We usually read it if it's just 1 chapter. So let's go ahead and jump into the rough outline of chapter 3. Hopefully you all read, and if not, that's okay. This rough outline will help to give you an idea of what's going on in the chapter. Joshua and Israel prepared to cross the Jordan River. They stay at the edge of the river for 3 days before continuing. The Ark of the Covenant is carried by priests, and it goes before the people. And as soon as the feet of the priests step into the water at the edge of the river, the water flow is stopped. The priests carrying the ark stay in the middle of the river while all Israel crosses to the other side. So that's a rough outline of chapter 3. Next part we do is any thoughts or questions. Does anyone have any thoughts that they had or questions they had about the chapter?
Why'd they just hang out for 3 days?
Good question.
What are they doing?
I like that. That's a good one. Okay, why 3 days? All right, what else?
I didn't have a pen when I was reading it. I didn't have anything to write down. But I thought, oh, well, when we read it, it'll prompt that question again. I'll read it.
And here we are, not reading
So
it.
I did have questions, but
That's okay.
they can't be retrieved.
What else? How about the similarities? This is more of a thought than a question, but the similarities of this event to what happened at the Red Sea back with Moses.
Which is curious. Like sometimes God does it the same way more than once. Sometimes he never does.
Yeah.
I guess you can't say that. Sometimes he never does, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's the opposite.
Yep. But it is interesting to see the similarities, because I think that there's something that's being told in the similarities. It's harder to find some deeper meaning within things that are different, but when you see a pattern of something, that's when you're like, oh, what's happening here? What's behind those similarities? Yep. So I think we'll look at that. Any other things that are worth mentioning? How about the ark going before the people? And staying in the middle of the whole event as well. Okay, so then generally what we do is we hope to take a look at all the questions or thoughts through the rest of the study of the chapter. We kind of come back to it and see if any of the questions are answered through other parts of the study. So the next part that we look at is translation changes, and I have a couple that I've marked that I thought were interesting, but then you all can say if there's any others that you saw in your translations that are different. In Joshua 3:5, it says purify instead of consecrate, and I thought that was kind of a nice way of putting it, 'cause sometimes we just don't really use that word consecrate, you know, in our everyday language, and so that word purify kind of helps a little bit to understand. But then why do you think that they consecrate or purify themselves? Verse 10 helps us to understand a part of that. Verse 10 in the NLT says, "Today you will know that the living God is among you. He will surely drive out the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites ahead of you. Look, the Ark of the Covenant, which belongs to the Lord of the whole earth, will lead you across the Jordan River." So that does kind of help us to understand what was important, because about the consecrating and purifying. If you think about it, when's the last time you guys remember the people having to consecrate themselves? It's not common for all the people to have to consecrate themselves before something happens. A lot of times, you know, we read about in Leviticus, you know, the priests are consecrated, the sacrifices are consecrated, the temple's consecrated, this and that, but it's different than that. There's only one other instance that I can think of where all of the people are commanded to consecrate themselves, and it's an anticipation of something big happening. Can anyone think of it?
Not the Passover.
No, but good thought though, not the Passover though. It's actually at Mount Sinai before God spoke to them on the mountain and gave them the Ten Commandments. And so both times we see God commanding the people to consecrate themselves, because it's going to be this revelation. They're preparing themselves for a revelation of God. You know, first it was in the giving of the law, and now we see that he's revealing himself to the people in this miracle that he's performing for them. And so it's kind of interesting to see that. Also, both times are at the very beginning of a new established leadership for Israel. Moses was newly established, and now Joshua is newly established. So,
And what all goes into that,
what all goes into what?
consecrating or purifying?
If I remember correctly, it's a lot of outward cleansing. So they wash their clothes, they have clean clothes on. I think they abstain from sexual activities, things like that, just to be as clean as possible, so that the outside is supposed to reflect what's on the inside. But it's an outward thing that they're supposed to do, and because that's really all they have at this time. They don't have a new spirit, a new heart, like we are able to have now. And so a lot of things were outward to reflect the inward. So I don't know if there's a whole lot more that goes into it, but that's off the top of my head, yeah. Any other thoughts on translation changes, anything that you guys noted? Okay, we can go into the next one, which is people and their roles. So what was Joshua's role here in chapter 3?
The new leader.
Yeah. And as the new leader, he is relaying God's words and commands to the people, including the command to consecrate themselves and the command to the priests on what they should be doing, take up the ark, carry it, he tells them everything that God tells him, right? This is what you are to expect and this is what you are to do. So then what do the priests do? What is their role?
To the water.
Yep, that's exactly right.
You had to have faith to go through that flooded water and hope that it floats.
Mm-hmm. And I think even greater faith, staying in the middle of it, that whole time.
Yeah.
That, I don't even know how long it takes for 2 million plus people to cross a river.
2 million?
2 million. Yep.
Oh my.
Is the number that we are estimating. It's the number we're estimating, but, yeah.
I was imagining a small group.
Yeah, no, when you've got 12 tribes and,
Yeah, I wasn't
You
thinking
know.
of that.
yeah.
And to hold the ark and not let it fall.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of, how,
Yeah.
did they like switch off? Because there were a number of priests
Yeah.
and they could,
Mhm. It's a bigger task than I think we realize, because just reading it, the way that it's worded, it's so simple and straightforward. In one sentence, they do it all, and, like you guys are saying, I think that there's a lot more to it than that. Cross references, Joshua 1:11 actually answers the question of why they waited 3 days, so we can look at that real quick. This is obviously the very beginning of when Joshua assumes command as leader of Israel. And so it says, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you are going to cross this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess it. So that is actually words from God. God is saying, this, you go and you're gonna, within 3 days, you're gonna be doing this. And so it's actually kind of cool to think about that God is actually orchestrating even their days. Within 3 days, you're going in here. And then even before that, when they were in the wilderness, if you guys remember, they would get up when the cloud moved on, they'd pack up and follow it, and when it settled, then they would stay, and sometimes it was a night, sometimes it was a week, sometimes it was multiple weeks. They had no idea. They followed it wherever it went, and so it was on God's timing, not their own timing of how they traveled, and it's still that way. And so it's very interesting to see how God has brought them to this river at the time that he has brought them to it, because at this time, the river is actually at its fullest. It is when all of the snow is melting and it's flooding the river. I actually have a picture.
it
Maybe.
said something about harvest, didn't it? Which
Yes.
surprised me that, harvest and it's flooding.
Yeah.
That would be the opposite of.
This is opposite there. It is opposite. Their harvest is in the
Aha.
spring.
Thank you very much.
Big Australia. I know.
I guess I
Do I have it?
didn't know
Yes, I do.
this was the southern hemisphere.
Oh.
Wow.
It's a terrible picture, but it's a raging river, is essentially what it is that they are meant to cross. You can't even imagine, like, looking at that and being like, "I'm supposed to cross that," you know?
With little kids and
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah, old people, everything, carts,
Pregnant ladies.
pregnant ladies, yes.
And mud.
And, well,
They dried
It
it.
says dry ground.
The
it
earth
does
was
say
dry.
dry ground.
Dry ground or?
God
I know,
dried it.
tacky or.
It's gotta be dry enough for people to walk across, for animals to go across, and the animals are carrying heavy loads.
Or wheels or whatever they have.
The priests are carrying the ark, they're not sinking down into the mud. So, God did something there.
Did you read anywhere where there was, it's in my study Bible here, where they think there was a landslide further up the river?
Yes, there's
That
a lot of
pi- that
speculation as
piled
to
it up.
what happened there. It's hard to tell because the wording says that the water stood up in a heap. That could be just like in the Red Sea where the waters parted and that was clearly the hand of God. Or it could be that the water stood up in a heap because of something else. We're not sure on that, but yeah, there's a lot of speculation as to exactly how that came about. Yeah.
And yet not coincidental that when.
Exactly.
When the priests left, then whoosh,
Yep.
right then.
Yeah.
Well, what luck.
Yeah. What I'm not sure about is how they knew, because somewhere I read, actually it's in here, where it talks about, it mentions a town.
Great city, distance away at.
Adam,
the
or
city
Adam.
That is beside Zarethan.
Yes, and I have a picture of a map. And it shows, oh shoot, that was the wrong map. I don't have a picture of the map, never mind. But it was not near, it was not super close. I mean, it was closer than other cities, but it was a distance away where I'm just kind of like, how did you know that happened all the way up there? I don't know. I don't know that. But I just thought that was interesting. So yeah, it's pretty cool to think how God orchestrated their timing so that they would end up at the river when it's at its fullest and it's at its scariest. I think that's kind of interesting because there's such an impossibility that is surrounding this whole thing. It is absolutely impossible to cross this river, and yet the people know God's saying, you're gonna cross this river. They have no idea how. They have no idea what's going to happen, but they just know that God's saying, you're crossing this river. And they're looking at that river going, I don't even know how that's gonna happen. But I kind of think that this situation that's happening at the river is kind of like, well, one, I think it's a test for their trust in God, that he's going to make a way for them. And two, I think it's almost like a small sample of what's to come. There's such an impossibility that's surrounding the situation with conquering the entire land of Canaan. It's a huge land area with multiple kings and multiple armies. All this coming from a landless people, that are supposed to come in and conquer a whole land area. It seems like an absolutely impossible thing. And so, maybe in their minds they're thinking, if we can't even cross a river, how are we supposed to do that? And that's where God comes in. And he says, I will show you how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna answer the questions of your fear and, just how this is even possible. It's with God leading the people, The ark goes ahead of the people, and he stays in the middle of the river, holding that river back from the people. That's exactly how God's going to do this. Yeah.
I was thinking it kind of bookends. They went through the Red Sea when they escaped, and now they're going through another parting of the waters. It's a different generation, they must have heard about the Red Sea
Yeah,
growing up.
yeah, or maybe they were children. Weren't some of them children of the previous generation that went through?
I don't know, they said that, well, one of these chapters we read that everyone had died off. All the men, it said the men that were, the young men and.
Right.
So I don't
Maybe
know
they were children.
that there could have.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure on the age of all that, yeah, but
But it was
anyway.
like he showed them leaving Egypt, I'm there, and now that's leaving, and now they're
Mhm.
going into,
Mhm.
and it's the same, to me, that's the similarity.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And both times he is establishing a leadership through miracles. With Moses, he was establishing Moses as leader through the miracles, and the people really believed at that point that God had set him up as leader. And now God's doing the same thing with Joshua.
Say, is Canaan now Israel? Where is Canaan? I tried to find on my map, but I can't see it.
Canaan is a very large area. I don't think I could tell you exactly what the boundaries are. It's hard to know the exact boundaries because a lot of times some of the places that are referenced are no longer called that.
Yeah, I wonder,
But
Is that
Israel's a
in
very
where was
small
it?
portion of what it's supposed to be.
okay.
I'm sorry, I don't think
Yes.
my Bible has any maps.
I just always figured the land of Israel was the promised land, because that's where they live.
Sure. The boundaries of Israel have changed a lot over
Okay.
the years. In fact, actually Joshua never really conquered the fullest of what he was supposed to conquer. And so, I mean, even then, they never really got everything that they were supposed to. But then ever since then, over the years, a lot of times what Israel has done to make peace with other nations is giving some of their land as part of the peace agreement.
Man's always involved.
Mhm. Well, we'll give you this chunk if you would just stop killing us. That's essentially what it is.
Go away.
Yeah.
A little map. I just-
Oh, do you? Nice.
It said, well, like the little red part says the area controlled by ancient Israel.
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's
another
very
part of
cool.
that. Pardon?
So that's what she.
You know what I mean? You need like a thing that's got a different maps and you know,
Yeah,
write down.
Actually, I have one of those.
Do you
I
really?
have that, one of those, yeah.
Oh, that's
I don't know
cool.
what parts of the world it is, yeah.
That's very
It's
cool.
from my old Sunday school.
No.
So I guarantee you, oh, I should bring that sometime.
You should. That would be so cool.
I totally forgot I had that. And it's got the stand. I gotta find that, I don't know where I put
That
it.
is so neat. You need to read
Yeah.
that. Now I need one of those telescoping ones.
All right. Right here, Katie's right here.
Yeah.
Makes that.
If you could see
whap
this
sound.
area
Probably
here.
does come out. Yeah, I need to find that. I gotta make this little notes.
You find that, I'll find a tab.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the Euphrates.
Let's talk about the Ark of the Covenant real quick. Obviously, the Ark of the Covenant's not a magic charm. So what does the Ark of the Covenant represent? It clearly is very important in this whole story.
Where God resides.
Yeah, the presence of God.
Yes, absolutely. It's the presence of God. So what way is that significant in this story then?
Well, he goes before them.
Mm-hmm.
He's there and
He's leading like a king, right? That's exactly what a king does. He leads his people.
He's there through it all,
Yep.
and he's there after it all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he's holding back, you know, what could be destroying his people. He's holding it back and allowing safe passage through. I think that's kind of interesting. All right, let's see if we can get through chapter 4 tonight. Normally, we also have theological principles that we kind of discuss. I'm going to skip over that just for the sake of time. But I do encourage you guys to think about those in your own time. Okay, chapter 4. A rough outline of that is, so all Israel has crossed over. The priests are still holding the ark in the middle of the river, and they stay there until everything is completed. Joshua selects a man from each tribe, so 12 men, to gather a stone from the middle of the middle of the river where the priests and the ark currently stand, and they carry the stones back to the side of the river where all Israel is gathered. Then Joshua sets up another 12 stones at the place where the priests stood with the ark in the middle of the river. And when the priests carrying the ark walk out of the river, the water begins to flow again as normal. Joshua takes the 12 stones that are gathered by the men from the tribes, and he sets them up at the place where they camped after crossing the river, and that's called Gilgal. And then Joshua commanded that Israel teach their children and the generations to come of God's power witnessed at the Jordan. These stones that are set up are to be as memorials. Okay, so any thoughts or questions on chapter 4?
I found it interesting that the 12 stones that they left in the middle, the verse says, and they're there to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to know is, what is this day? I mean, is that,
Today.
Today?
I
I
took
mean,
it as today.
at first, that's what I thought, and then I thought, oh, no, but this is when it was written, or is it there today?
Maybe it's both.
We won't know for a while, probably, but I took it as, it's
Yeah. I don't know that they would say, why else would the Holy Spirit inspire the writer to say it's there to this day if it wasn't actually going to mean something, knowing that readers were going to be seeing that years and years and years later. I don't know. It makes you think. It makes you think, for sure. It is cool. I do like that a lot.
You think with the currents that they kind of roll
Move,
over,
yeah.
And they
Well,
can't have been that big.
Well, that's what I wanna know, how big were they?
It
That's,
says that each man took up a stone on his shoulder. So how strong is a average Israelite?
maybe that's a rock, that's not a
It's a
stone.
boulder.
That's,
yeah,
yeah.
Stone is just small.
I don't know, when I've moved
Those are heavy.
one like
Yeah.
this to from the side of the house to the front of the house, it was,
Gives you a hernia.
well, it was near
Just trying to
impossible.
move it.
I mean, getting it onto a dolly to then
Uh-huh.
pull and then kind of dump and go, yeah, that's where it's gonna stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Putting it on your shoulder, huh?
Mm-hmm. What else? Anybody else get confused when you were reading it, just how many stones were involved? I kept going back and be like, are these the same 12 stones? Are they different stones? How many stones are you talking about here?
Sounds like
that was
24.
me. Yeah, yes. That was very confusing to me for a little bit.
So nobody died.
Nobody died. Where did you think somebody died?
I was just wondering about it. And
Oh, okay.
I don't remember reading that anybody died.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So, a complete provision.
Yeah.
There is a mention in there, I don't know if you guys noticed, where the tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh go marching through, and it's specifically mentioned there.
Well,
Yeah.
40,000.
Anybody remember why it is the half-tribe of Manasseh?
no, but I wondered.
Way back with Joseph, and he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and Joseph's father was Jacob. Jacob went to bless them, and he essentially said, you are now both half tribes that are going to make up one tribe, because there's 12 tribes, one for every son of Jacob. He had 12 sons. And so now, he has made the two sons of Joseph into half tribes, that are kind of making up one tribe. I don't know why he did that. But that's why whenever you see the half tribe of Manasseh, then that's what that means. But
Was it kind of a thing of honor to be actually including with what his sons were, taking the grandsons? He
Could
must have
be.
had grandsons from the others, and they didn't get
That's a very good point.
a tribe.
That's a very good point.
So was it Joseph's portion that became
Uh-huh.
that?
Because there isn't a tribe called Joseph.
Right, exactly. Which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Manasseh is Joseph's tribe?
Yes, it's Joseph's son. So it is part of the tribe of Joseph.
Manasseh, and what's the other brother?
Ephraim.
Oh, that's right, I remember.
What I can never remember is which one was older than the other, but the younger got the bigger blessing, and I can never remember who's who. I stink at that, because they all sound alike to me. Sorry, guys. Any other thoughts or questions on chapter 4? Okay, we can move on to translation changes. Verse 9 in the NLT answers my question of how many stones total. It basically says that Joshua set up another pile. It words it differently. The NLT words it differently to help clarify on that. So Joshua set up another pile of 12 stones in the riverbed at the place where the priest stood with the ark, and this makes a total of 24 stones set up in 2 memorials, which I think is really interesting. Why the memorial in the middle of the river that's going to be covered with water later?
Did you
Maybe
find out
we get
why?
to
I didn't. I didn't. These are the things that keep me up at night.
Maybe we get to see it in end times, or
Oh, maybe.
you know,
If it's there to this day, then maybe that will be a thing later.
when he remakes everything, we'll get to see those.
That'd be cool.
I've read that before, and it's there to this day.
Yeah.
Not just that, but other, and I've always
Yeah.
wondered, do they mean now or what?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I think I like to think that it's there
Yeah, I
to
like to
this
think that
day,
it's
just
now.
because.
And if that's the case, do people know it's there so that ships, or not ships, but that vessels go around it because they
Oh,
will?
that'd be kind of interesting if there was like,
A marker?
yeah.
And find the Titanic, you can find those 12 stones.
Yeah.
The natives know not to hit that one spot. Yeah, I don't know, that'd be really cool to know.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Woke you up, didn't
Intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about the 12 stones.
Dreaming.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can think of is that you put up memorials, a lot of times in Old Testament, they put up these stone memorials at the place where something amazing happened. And so maybe it was just appropriate to put one exactly at the spot where something amazing happened. But then knowing that it was going to be covered with water, they built the other one on the bank, on the other side, where people would actually see it. And then, they'd be able to say, oh, this is what happened here, and there's actually stones in that river still to this day, like that kind of thing. That's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe it just caught a lot of soil and other debris, and it's built an island in there, and the 12 stones are just kept there.
There you go. That'd be cool. That's the only reason why I can think of the 2. Because otherwise, wouldn't you just build the one that you can see and not fuss with the other one?
Yeah.
And that was 12 extra stones that had to be carried, So,
Well, they're supposed to teach their children.
It's mentioned
Right.
So it's like
60
a visual
times in
versus
the Bible
there,
to
in
this
there
day.
somewhere? You still do that water.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to,
Yeah,
Well, that's
a little
interesting.
more difficult to teach.
right.
Does it say what it means?
But many times, the phrase refers to.
But why not
something that
just
was once true,
on the land
but is no
instead
longer
of-
true today.
How do they know?
What'd you say, Sarah? I'm
Why
sorry.
not just the land then, instead of in the water too, it's something to.
Oh, sure. Or the land one reminds them to tell them about the one in the water, you know? Oh, hey, yeah, those stones there, that's what happened. And then, did you know that there's actually, you can't see them, but they're in there to
Right
this
where the
day.
place stood.
Well, that was lightning I just saw out the window. What were you saying, Diane? Something about the To This Very Day?
Yeah.
I was Googling
Mm.
that phrase, and that phrase to this day appears about 60 times throughout the Bible.
Oh, wow.
Well,
That's cool.
Yes.
I know of the first one now.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to know how many of those to this day
Mhm.
things have been confirmed that they are still there to this
What did they
day.
say?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
They said that some are not,
Yes.
some are confirmed not to be.
Some of them were true back then, but not now.
Not now.
Is Lot's wife, was that pillar of salt to this day? That surely wouldn't be.
I don't remember that.
I don't
being in
remember
there.
if that is one
I
or
read
not.
that lots of times.
I don't remember that one.
It may not be.
Genesis was a while ago though, so.
Oh.
That salt would no longer be
Ooh,
there.
right.
It says it Lot's
Write that
wife.
one down.